Chapter 2. George Whitefield's Direct Usefulness. Estimate of good that Whitefield did. Testimonies of his direct usefulness. Indirect good that he did. Peculiar character of his preaching. Witness to his real power as a preacher. Analysis of his 75 published sermons. Simplicity, directness, power of description, earnestness, pathos, action, voice, and fluency. His leading excellences, inner life, humility, love to Christ, laboriousness, self-denial, disinterestedness, cheerfulness, Catholicity, specimen of his preaching. George Whitefield, in my judgment, was so entirely chief and first among the English reformers of the last century that I make no apology for offering some further information about him. The real amount of good he did, the peculiar character of his preaching, the private character of the man, all are points that deserve consideration. They are points, I may add, about which there is a vast amount of misconception. This misconception, perhaps, is unavoidable and ought not to surprise us. The materials for forming a correct opinion about such a man as Whitefield are necessarily very scanty. He wrote no book for the million, of worldwide fame like Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress. He headed no crusade against an apostate church, with a nation at his back and princes on his side like Martin Luther. He founded no religious denomination, which pinned its faith on his writings and carefully embalmed his best acts and words like John Wesley. There are Lutherans and Wesleyans in the present day, but there are no Whitefieldites. No. The great evangelist of last century was a simple, guileless man who lived for one thing only, and that was to preach Christ. If he did that, he cared for nothing else. The records of such a man are large and full in heaven, I have no doubt. But they are few and scanty upon earth. We must not forget, beside this, that the many in every age see nothing in a man like Whitefield but fanaticism and enthusiasm. They abhor everything like zeal in religion. They dislike everyone who turns the world upside down and departs from old traditional ways, and will not let the devil alone. Such persons, no doubt, would tell us that the ministry of Whitefield only produced temporary excitement, that his preaching was commonplace rant, and that his character had nothing about it to be specially admired. It may be feared that 1800 years ago there would have said such the same of St. Paul. The question, what good did Whitefield do, is one which I answer without the least hesitation. I believe that the direct good that he did to immortal souls was enormous. I will go further. I believe it is incalculable. Credible witnesses in England, Scotland, and America have placed on record their conviction that he was the means of converting thousands of people. Many, wherever he preached, were not merely pleased, excited, and arrested, but positively turned from sin and made thorough servants of God. Numbering the people, I do not forget, is at all times an objectionable practice. God alone can read hearts and discern the wheat from the tares. Many, no doubt, in days of religious excitement, are set down as converted who are not converted at all. But I wish my readers to understand that my high estimate of Whitefield's usefulness is based on a solid foundation. I ask them to mark well what Whitefield's contemporaries thought of the value of his labors. Franklin, the well-known American philosopher, was a cold-blooded, calculating man, a Quaker by profession, and not likely to form too high an estimate of any minister's work. Yet even he confessed that it was wonderful to see the change soon made by the preaching in the manners of the inhabitants of Philadelphia, from being thoughtless or indifferent about religion. It seemed as if all the world were growing religious. Franklin himself, it may be remarked, was the leading printer of religious works at Philadelphia, and his readiness to print Whitefield's sermons and journals shows his judgment of the hold that he had on the American mind. Maclaurin, Willison, and McCulloch were Scottish ministers whose names are well known north of the Tweed, and the two former of whom deservedly rank high as theological writers. All these have repeatedly testified that Whitefield was made an instrument of doing immense good in Scotland. Willison in particular says that God honoured him with surprising success among sinners of all ranks and persuasions. Old Henry Venn of Huddersfield and Yelling was a man of strong good sense, as well as of great grace. His opinion was that if the greatness, extent, success, and disinterestedness of a man's labours can give him distinction among the children of Christ, then we are warranted to affirm that scarce anyone has equalled Mr. Whitefield. Again, he says, he was abundantly successful in his vast labours. The seals of his ministry from first to last, I am persuaded, were more than could be credited could the number be fixed. This is certain. His amazing popularity was only from his usefulness, for he no sooner opened his mouth as a preacher than God commanded an extraordinary blessing upon his word. John Newton was a shrewd man, as well as an eminent minister of the gospel. His testimony is that which finished Mr. Whitefield's character as a shining light, and is now his crown of rejoicing, was the singular success which the Lord was pleased to give him in winning souls. It seemed as if he never preached in vain. Perhaps there is hardly a place in all the extensive compass of his labours where some may not yet be found who thankfully acknowledge him as their spiritual father. John Wesley did not agree with Whitefield on several theological points of no small importance, but when he preached his funeral sermon, he said, "Have we read or heard of any person who called so many thousands, so many myriads of sinners to repentance? Above all, have we read or heard of anyone who has been the blessed instrument of bringing so many sinners from darkness to light, and from the power of Satan unto God?"